Hello, everybody, and welcome again to another episode of the Risk Matrix with James Junkin.
Roll Tide and happy Mardi Gras. We build into it. Parades galore. NOLA survived the terrorist attack. Thank y'all again for all your prayers and support. But man, we ready to party down in NOLA. It's cold everywhere else. It's cold here too, but it's never too cold for king cake.
So I had to introduce him first because he's got a lot to say. I'm also here, and I'm Dr. Martin, and the two of us together are going to go ahead and we're going to interview today Mr. Franklin Shanks. He is a friend of James, a classmate of James. Both of them were in my class at one point, but we're all kind of in the same. I'm a little bit older than you two gentlemen, but we're all kind of in the same genre of safety professionals. And we just finished an episode with an emerging safety professional. Now we got you on here, Franklin, and we've got a lot to talk about today. But before we do that, we're going to have a word from our sponsors. Everybody knows that we're powered by Veriforce. They support us in putting forth these episodes every Tuesday. But we also have sponsors. So let's give a moment for our sponsors.
The Safety on the Edge Conference is a premier event that brings together academia, industry leaders, safety professionals, regulatory agencies, and experts to discuss and promote the latest advancements in safety technology, models, and best practices. The Safety on the Edge Conference is proud to sponsor Veriforce's Risk Matrix.
Veriforce is proud to announce the latest version of our Safeland USA accredited course called Basic Orientation 7.0. This is our flagship course that has been taken by over 1.6 million students nationwide. The newest version of this course is shorter than the last version, with condensed training and updated multimedia, but it still includes the same topics as previous courses. As always, the Safeland orientation remains with this employee through the career. It eliminates the redundancy of multiple orientations, and it stores all the training records in a single centralized database for everyone to use. Also, we offer two solutions for getting the training. You can either seek out Safeland training from one of our third-party providers, or you can send one of your instructors through our Train the Trainer program to teach your own employees. If you're interested in learning more, please contact our training sales department at 888-482-9101. That's 888-482-9101, or you can email us at trainingsales@veriforce.com.
Welcome back, everybody. And again, I'm here with James Junkin, Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
And Mr. Franklin Shanks. Franklin, welcome to the show.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, I want to say something about Frank Shanks. Before he was your student, he was my student.
Sure was.
Oh.
So, Frank,
so this is
tell
the
them
teacher
how you
teaching
got
the
into
teacher teaching
safety
the teacher.
and a little bit about the veterans program. Both me and Frank are veterans of the United States Navy, but Frank got introduced to safety through a special program we used to have at a company named PEC Safety, which was the legacy company of Veriforce. It was called Battlefields to Oil Fields. And Frank was one of our students.
So, yeah, I'll tell you how I met James. So going back, I mean, might age me a little bit, but, just turned 40, so don't feel that old. But, for years, I was in the Navy, active duty 4 years, and then I did a few years in the reserves. I got out and actually became a Texas State Trooper. Got out, 24 or 5 years old, still didn't know what I wanted to do. But I feel like, a bunch of young kids out there, everybody wants to be a soldier, a police officer, or a firefighter, right? So I did two of them. And technically, we're all firefighters in the Navy, right?
Right.
So, yeah. So after that, actually, I have a personal story. My father, he passed away at 44 years old of emphysema, hardening of the lungs. He was a Boilermaker. And I had no clue what the field of occupational health and safety was back then. And I remember back in the summertime, and this was in the 90s, we would go up to the shop when he wasn't in a refinery. And we'd go in the shop, and he'd pop out of the boiler with stuff all over his face, beard like me and James got, and wouldn't have any respirator on or anything. For everyone out there, emphysema is the hardening of the lungs, where your lungs, the alveoli, if I'm saying it right, lose the ability to absorb oxygen. So 44 years old, passed away. Now, back then, I didn't realize it, but as a child, it taught me a lot of things about supervisor. And I know that's not the topic of this discussion, but his supervisor would come out and he would be his friend and talking about having a cold beer on the weekend and not say anything about him wearing his mask. My mom would tell the supervisor sometimes, and he'd be like, Eric, get your old lady off my butt and wear the mask, So when he passed away, my mom, she filed a lawsuit against the company. Didn't get anything out of the company. Years later, when I'm an adult, finding out, talking to her, that he was fit tested. He had his respiratory protection training. The company did their due diligence, but he didn't have any enforcement from the supervisor. He wasn't clean shaven. And, I didn't have any evidence of this, but I was told that she got some money personally out of the supervisor for his lack of enforcing safety. So around that time, I was a Texas State Trooper, and I was looking around, and someone told me about the field of safety, and I wanted to make a difference. And I saw a program called Battlefields to Oil Fields at a PEC premiere in Louisiana, somewhere in the Chaffalaya Basin. I forget where. I think it's in
Morgan
Lafayette.
City. Morgan City.
And if y'all seen the movie Waterboy with Farmer Dan, there's people that actually talk like that down there, So, Morgan City, Louisiana. So I think it was a month-long program, and I was able to use the GI Bill for that. And I think we got you got all kinds of certifications. Got my TWIC card, got the Hewitt water survival. I got OSHA 30, certified safety technician, I think from the National Safety Council. We had HAZWOPER, we even had combined rescue, every certification you could think of in that month-long period that could get you working offshore in a refinery, upstream or downstream.
What a great program.
It was awesome. And James was the primary instructor. And it was a good opportunity for veterans to get the name Battlefields to Oil Fields. So anyway, that's how I met James. Me and James, we were both the same rank in the Navy, the First Class Petty Officers Association, kind of a brotherhood there. And, we became friends and kept in touch ever since Battlefields to Oil Fields. Shortly after I got out of Battlefields to Oil Fields, I got a job working offshore with Total Safety as a hydrogen sulfide technician. I did that for a few months, and they asked me to be a project manager trainee in their refineries. Did that for a few months, and believe it or not, I got a job as an HSE manager for a Fortune 500 company called National Oil of Arco.
Awesome.
And the guy that hired me, his name was Guillermo, and he had a master's in public health. That was back in the day before they really offered an occupational health and safety degree. He was a CSP, and he was a second mentor of mine. I consider James my number one mentor, and Guillermo was my second one. And of course, NOV said 10 years experience, progressive experience and everything. But when he interviewed me, he saw my potential and decided to override HR and hire me. I completed an MBA right after I got out of the Battlefields to Oil Fields, and then later went on to get the Master in Occupational Safety and Health, my CSP, of course. And I recently enrolled in the PhD program for Columbia Southern.
Good for you. Good for you.
How I met James, and we keep up, and we talk from time to time. We try to talk about safety, but we get off talking and start talking about all kinds of, but
sailors, sailors.
Yeah, it's good. James Junkin he's a mentor. He's passionate about what he does. I can tell you that right now. He is the guy to go to if you have questions on safety.
I'll tell you one thing about Franklin Shanks and that program. I love that program. That program, 96% of the graduates, okay, most of them were post 9/11 veterans. A lot of them forward deployed. We trained everything from a full bird colonel to a PFC, to people from Naval Special Warfare, to folks that worked in admin. 500 veterans came through that program. Not one of those veterans committed suicide. 96% of them got jobs. But yep. Frank was one of the few that went beyond just trying to learn to pass the test that we gave them. And some of the tests were hard. Some of them were a little bit simpler. But I remember when Frank went to work there in NOV, he said, every question they asked me was in the core program that y'all taught us.
Yep.
And that was one of the proudest moments I had, because I felt like we were making a difference and helping those who went forward and answered the call. to defend this nation, and then I felt like we gave back to them and gave them an opportunity. But post that, Frank, what you been doing, man? You're an experienced safety professional fixing to be Dr. Shanks.
I've been in the field of health and safety right now, I guess, just over 11 years. And I've worked, I mean, I've seen everything. So I'm glad we're having a topic of discussion today. So I've worked offshore, drilling rigs, I've worked construction, I've worked manufacturing, different projects here and there, and even inside refineries. So I've seen everything and learned the terminology. You know, a strange thing going into refineries when people say, you know, I'm about to drag up. And I'm like, what are they talking about? I guess that means quit. You know?
Dragging up
Hey,
six.
I'm giving you a 2-day notice. I'm leaving here today.
Yeah. And I was introduced to that show, Refined. I guess that cartoon on YouTube,
yeah.
you know, they use that lingo. But yeah, I think I've seen everything. So I've seen, you know, and our topic of discussion today, I'm glad because I've seen it across the board. So I worked for, you know, of course, a Fortune 500 company, from small organizations to larger organizations, from manager to director to global responsibilities. I've traveled and I've traveled to Dubai, Saudi Arabia, Singapore, Guyana, South America, and you learn a lot in these third world countries. Canada and several locations in the United States, and I've had the responsibility of HSE. Really teaches you a lot about culture when you have global responsibility and you're trying to implement standardization across the board. And I won't go off topic too much, but a country like Guyana, South America, where life is viewed very cheap, people would come in for interviews when I was down there, missing fingers, missing hands, missing toes, and just walk in barefoot. And a lot of these things were eye-opening when you try to put American standardization in place in countries like that. Yeah, but that's where I'm at. So my most recent position, I was the national HSE manager for all U.S. locations in manufacturing, and that's where I'm at.
So you started in oil fields. You're in manufacturing now. Have you gone through other industries, or have you stuck with one? Is there one that you like best? I mean, do you like best what you're in now, or is it just always a kind of a learning curve?
So most recently, it's been a mix of construction and manufacturing. The last company I was with had manufacturing facilities, and then when the field work was considered construction. So I got to tell you, I think from my experience, manufacturing is light years ahead of other industries like construction, because when you start incorporating, I've come from organizations where I was able to get, you know, I've already mentioned NOV, National of Arco. I was able to get a Six Sigma green belt. Define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. And a lot of people don't think that ties into safety, but it definitely does.
Oh my gosh, it does. Thanks for saying that. Oh my gosh, it does.
So we were able to do a project on hand injuries, which define the problem, measure it, analyze it, improve it, and then control it. And there's other, you know, aspects of manufacturing 5S organization. You know, I think housekeeping, according to Travelers Insurance, they come out with their data where, you know, they're like the monopoly. I don't know if I can say that, monopoly on workers' comp insurance, but I think 19 or 20%, almost every year it changes between 18 to 21% are slips, trips, and falls. And housekeeping and slips, trips, and falls ties into that 5S of everything has a place. And when you tie safety, an effective safety program, you can increase quality and production. So with that being said, with 5S and Six Sigma, if everything has a place with the shadow boards and organization of the tools and everything, when employees are, say, one employee spending 15 minutes looking for a tool times 120 employees in the shop, that's going to greatly reduce your production. And, you know, a lot of organizations that I've worked at, I've tried to incorporate the business side of things to get them to understand how if you increase your safety program, then you can also increase your profitability, your quality, and your production. And so to answer your question, I would say manufacturing has been, I think, my favorite industry just because of how far ahead they are. And I feel they're more apt to adopt safety programs and procedures. Like,
you know, I would agree with you. And I think it's because the business side in the manufacturing, I did a little time at Mercedes-Benz US International manufacturing automobiles when I got out of the Navy. And, you know, safety was a byproduct of the quality program, right? And the quality program was inside of the total management system. We incorporated 5S. I remember little crude Navy joke here. When they first went out there, I wasn't familiar with the term 5S. All I could think of was the 3S's that we had in the Navy. I'm like, what's the other two? But I really enjoyed my time there because one of the things that the CEO told me is, James, we got to make things about the process and not about the people. I said, don't we want to hire good people? He said, yes, we do.
Yeah.
But if the process is only in their head, what do we do when they retire? What do we do if they win the lottery? What if they do if they get a better job?
Yeah.
Then the entire process goes out the window with those folks, and we're left with nothing. So you have to be willing, and this is really hard for me as a young executive. I did not want to let the process fail. Management was like, you got to let it fail so that we know when we've got flaws in the process. I'd short circuit the process and go around it to keep the line running, to keep building cars, because I thought that was our goal. Do what we got to do to keep winning. But really, that was hurting the overall team, because what do we do when James leaves and we don't fix it, right? Then our process, it gets revealed to not be what we thought it was. And that kind of leads back to a lot of things I think have informed your opinion and my opinion when it comes to safety. Welcome back, Dr. Martin.
Sorry about that. I don't know what that was.
It's okay. We were just talking about processes and manufacturing. But I do got a question for you, Frank, and set you up for success. Now that you've got experience in the safety field and in senior positions, looking back, what's changed as far as your philosophy or methodologies from when you first got in safety as that H2S Tech B2O graduate to now Frank Shanks, master degree, safety professional, MBA, CSP, beginning
high-level manager, executive. Yeah.
What's changed?
So I can tell you, as an H2S tech, you're just your hand. I remember being on the rig being called a hand plenty of times by the company man and tool pusher and different type of leadership. But when you're and I'm glad that I've experienced, I guess you'd say, starting at the bottom, because I feel like there's a lot of things lost in translations between policies and procedures down to the shop floor or the employee, because senior leadership has this idea, hey, we put this policy and procedure out and everybody's following it. And I've learned with that to start doing employee reviews similar to HR does, to see what they're retaining, to see what they're doing. That's how you gauge your culture. But what I've seen change a lot is when I first got into the field, 2013, I guess it was, 2014, behavior-based safety was rampant. And it had that. Now, I'm going to tell you, I've subscribed to both human performance and behavior-based safety kind of intermingled together. The best of human performance, like recognition, tied with system drivers of the human performance. But it was always that mantra of name, blame, shame, retrain. And everyone's familiar with shop talk. As a senior leader, you got to be familiar with the shop talk of what's going on in the shop. Because if you were injured, when I was on the oil rig, Bessie's real strict out there. People would drop their hard hat in the water and freak out, and they would hide it. Or someone would trip and fall and hit their head on the rail, but it wouldn't cause a cut or laceration. And they would just look around and just hope nobody tells them. Because if you reported injuries up to leadership, human performance tells you leadership reaction matters too, because they would just throw their hands up in the air. Oh, now I got to report this. Now we got another near miss. Now we got another injury. Now all hell's going to break loose from top down, coming down. And we've gone 300 something days without, and on a side note, I hate those signs up in shops that say we've gone this long without an injury or whatever, because you are psychologically, now I don't have a degree in psychology, but I'm telling you that from my experience, you are telling other employees, you don't want to be that man. You don't want to be that woman that reports it.
The one that ruins the pizza party.
And that's why I'm glad that there was some ocean interpretation on safety bonuses or financial compensation, because, I don't know how much safety bonuses are nowadays, but let's imagine every quarter everyone gets $1,000. All the field hands or field workers.
That's enough.
you're behind on your bills and you're really looking forward to getting that $1,000 or whatever it is, and you slice your finger open. Well, guess what a lot of people are going to do? They're just going to wrap that up, hide it, and go home. And if they're questioned about it later, I did that at home. So then you had these safety programs out there that I would just say weren't effective at all because you didn't have real data. You had everyone scared to report anything. And I remember working offshore, I had to submit 3 observations a day. It was 3 or 5, but it was a lot. And people got to the point where they were making stuff up, because if you got 300 employees on this rig times 5, I mean, what's that, 1,500? That is a lot. So then we would set, together as the technicians and be like, man, well, I got 2 today. Well, I better turn in my other 3 or I'm going to get in trouble. Well, I'll just say I saw not wear a hard hat,
Yep.
Yeah.
So Frank, I'll tell you, that still goes on today.
Yeah.
I was on a site probably 3 years ago or so, and I was working at a pharmaceutical company. I was in the field with the company that I was working for. And even the office staff had to make 3 observations a week, or, I mean, it was enough, right? And there was a big plate glass window overlooking where we were building, right? Where our cranes were working and whatnot. And the people would stand in the window, and there was a house phone there, kind of like you have in a lobby of a hotel. And you could see them looking in the window and dialing up whoever they dial up to make their complaints or their safety observations. And for what? Well, I don't know what they were accomplishing with that, other than making people tell on each other, create an atmosphere that was not conducive to
nobody
learning.
likes a rat.
It's a snitch program. Yeah.
Okay?
Snitch
It's a snitch program. And it's built upon garbage in, garbage out data.
Yep.
Right? I've literally seen people sit in the lunch area or on the break room and fill these things out, like Frank said, But we got what we asked for. We asked for cards. We put a quote on cards, and the workforce gave us cards. Question: did it make us any better from a safety standpoint? Did it prevent incidents? Did it reduce unsafe acts? No, it didn't. Right. So I kind of, when we were in the early episode, Frank, when I got in safety, I was hammered with BBS. Yep. That's how we were trained.
Same.
And I've evolved that to kind of where you are, which there's some components of behavior-based safety I like, and there's some components of human performance I like. And what I don't like is I have somebody telling me in a presentation 2 or 3 times a year, I got to be in one camp or the other.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're not my mom and dad, baby. I can be in whatever camp I want to. How about we get out of the camp and find out what works for your organization that brings workers home safe? If it works in your company, I don't care if you do BBS. If human performance is working and you're following the Decker model and the Conklin model, and that is working for your organization, and people are coming home safe, more power to you. But I think we got to start stigmatizing people because they subscribe to some of these different safety management theories.
So let me build on what James asked you, and I'm gonna look the other way and say, what do you wish you knew as you came from battlefields to oil fields to now, as a young man, as a young professional? What do you wish you would have had up front that maybe would have taken Franklin? I mean, you're pretty far in your career. You're doing well. You're getting your doctorate. You're doing all these things. You're high level in your career. But what do you think would have pushed you a little farther, a little faster, a little stronger? What would have helped?
Oh man.
And are you providing that now to the younger generation? There's the kicker.
So initially, when I did start working for NOV, I would say leadership support. I'm glad I got the leadership support, because later on in my career, I won't mention any organizations, but I didn't. I feel that, one of the most profound struggles safety professionals face is resistance to change, whether it's from employees or leadership. That's something I wish I would have known early on. And I could tell you, when I started with NOV. We had the vice president of operations that was over all of rig systems. And I was hired by NOV, the first NOV employee, and NOV was acquiring everybody. So they acquired a company that wasn't safe at all. It didn't have anything in place. Well, that vice president found out all of our machine guards the interlocks have been bypassed. Well, this is 2014 when everything was booming and we had a year backlog. He shut the whole machine shop down for 2 weeks to get those machine guards fixed. And that set the precedent right there that safety was very important.
Good for him.
And so I didn't experience what a lot of safety professionals do, where they come in and they don't have the top down leadership support. But what that did is it kind of spoiled me. When I went on to other organizations, I thought I would have that, and I didn't. And I think that is a major struggle that a lot of safety professionals have. Like they can get fired from jobs because a lot of leadership sees safety as a hindrance, as a cost,
and it's a blame game too, right?
And not a benefit to the company. Yeah. And if there's a serious injury or fatality that happens that will occur, well, they'll point the finger. It's the safety man, you know, and not realizing how important their role in safety is. If the senior vice president of a Fortune 500 company comes in and says, you're going to shut this machine shop down for 2 weeks, I don't care how much it costs till these machine guards are fixed, that sets the precedent. And everyone gets in line. But I hope I didn't ramble when I answered your question. But
I mean, I'm just thinking that, you know, we talked to Hunter Bradley on our previous show, and we're talking to you now. Like, he's looking for certain things coming in as a professional, and I think hindsight is good too, right? I mean, because that can inform some young safety professionals for things that they should be looking for and some things that they should expect, right? I mean, I had the same thing. I'm sure James did sometime in his career, where you're expecting the textbook management commitment and all these different things, and you don't get it.
No.
The stress of knowing that if there's an injury or illness or something happens, that your job is on the line, and maybe it's not really you that caused the problem, or, I mean, you had no control over it, but you can help fix it. But there's a lot of stress with that, right? And I mean, I guess that's the one thing I would tell people is that, you know, it's not a low stress job if you really care. It's not.
It's not.
I've learned to speak their language, and for the operations people to speak their language on the business side of things. You know, nobody wants to, even operations managers don't want to go home at night and tell their wife that someone passed away under their watch. I'm sure.
Right.
I have faith in a lot of humanity that I do believe that they care, but I feel complacency takes over. And a lot of people get complacent, and they get the pressure from above or shareholders that we've got to increase profits this quarter. We got to increase profits this year. And a lot of times safety is put on a back burner.
Yeah.
Well,
I agree.
You know, I've got a good friend who is a former preacher. I've known this guy since before I was in high school. I mean, we've been friends for 40 years, right? And he got out of preaching for a lot of different reasons. But recently, the congregation he's at was looking to hire a new preacher. And the guy that was going to be interviewing or whatever for this position, he gave him some advice. And I thought it was sound advice. And it can apply to safety professionals looking to get senior positions. He said, when you try out here, preach the sermon that you think will get you fired. And I
love that.
What happens is, as safety professionals, we go in and we're talking to management. We're trying to sell them on our credentials and what we can do, whatever. And what they're buying isn't exactly what they thought they were going to buy when you start coming in and having to make drastic changes to change the organizational culture of a company.
Yep.
You know, companies often, when we start getting people, you know, talking about those 0 days away, when we say, hey, we're not doing that anymore, and all of a sudden your TRI goes from 0 to really the true number 7.9 because people have been hiring all this, that's a shock to the system, right? And you know, once you have that position, it's hard then as a safety professional because you've got financial commitments. A lot of us have families, we've got kids, we got bills to pay, we got life to take on, we've got mortgages, and now you're in a situation where how long do I ride this out? And we did an episode of knowing when it's time to go, right? So I think as you grow in this profession and you move from Hunter Bradley, who's just starting out, and you become the safety director of a multi-million-dollar organization, it's incumbent to make sure before you take that position, no matter what the pay is, you make sure you and management are on the same page. And it's even better to get it in writing.
Yeah, I've seen that. I'm glad you said that. Anytime in my experience you start to change a culture, and that's why I'm glad I have the top-down leadership support, your injury rate does this. It goes up because now people are starting to report things that they were hiding. And I could see someone like Bradley or maybe a younger person in safety, if they come in and they change a culture, if they're not on the same page of management, you have to tell leadership, hey, if you want to change this organization, understand that your injury rate is going to go up, and it's going to take 1 to 3 years to change a culture until it starts going down. But you could come in and start changing a culture and your injury rate goes up, and then you can get scapegoated and get terminated or fired. And then the executives will look at, well, ever since you hired this new safety man or safety director or manager, your injury rate's gone up. And then be told to let that person go, or whatever the case may be. The field of safety is very challenging on so many aspects that if I could go back and tell myself everything I know now, like that would, I would love that.
Right. So you know what that's a call to do? Be a good mentor. Be a good mentor and mentor as many people as you have capacity to mentor, right? Doesn't mean overextend yourself, because we talk about self-care and all these different things today, because you have to make time for you as well. But be a good mentor, and that's one thing that our previous show and with you, that's something that you can connect on. Being a good mentee, being a good mentor, and leaving that thread of yourself within the profession, so that when you're gone, there's a tiny little bit of touch of James Junkin in there, a tiny little bit of Franklin Shanks, and a tiny little bit of Dr. Martin that leads them to the next level. So, and on that note, I don't know, James, do you have more questions for Franklin?
Well, I'd like to say thank you, Frank, for what you meant to your brothers and sisters that came through the B2O program. You're an outstanding representative of that program. That was a fantastic program. We helped a lot of people. I was honored to be a small part of that program, and we celebrate your success. One last thing I want to ask as we wrap this up: you've got an MBA, you've got a master's degree, you've got a CSP, but you did all this while you were working, right?
Yes.
While you had a job. What's some advice you can give to people who are thinking about, studying for certifications, going back to school? There's so many people, I don't know what the numbers are. They get started and then they quit. So what can you give to those people advice about, hey, take that jump, but here's how you stay in the game?
All right. Well, I'm going to be realistic with you because my programs, let's say my bachelor's degree took me from 2004 to 2011 to get. But then, I did keep on track with the 2 years for the MBA and 2 years for the master's degree. But I can tell you, life throws hurdles at you. It does. You don't have to be a genius to get a degree or a master's degree. You just have to stay committed to it. And I can tell you the number one thing that I did. And, honestly, when I was getting my bachelor's degree, when I got my MBA, I was a Texas State Trooper working shift work, 2 weeks days, 2 weeks nights, long, stressful hours. And then I was also still in the Navy Reserves, the training officer on the weekends. And I was a dad. But time management is so important. I've struggled with procrastination before, and that'll kill you. So you've got to schedule some time to do the things that you need to do, stick to that time, and you'll realize, hey, you still got hours in the day left. And I managed to stay in shape, be an active father in my son's life, work, shift work, and do everything. But you know what I did? I put this thing down, and I turned off Married with Children on the TV. I don't, people would talk to me about a show. Hey, have you seen Breaking Bad? And look at me like I'm crazy because I never seen that show back then. Because these things you should do a show on how these just mess up your mind. They could be a safety issue.
Hey, that ought to be the show, phone addiction.
death scrolling, where it's 4 hours
Scrolling.
later. Oh, the time has gone by. Yeah. So I would just say, understand that there will be setbacks in life. Like there will. I think a lot of people quit because they'll have a death in the family, lose a job, or whatever. And I think the people that I've mentored, that's the number one thing. They'll be 2 or 3 years into their 4-year degree. Something will happen in life, and then they just never go back. Well, don't give up. Pick up on the next course, and then keep going, and keep going. Don't tell yourself, I will complete this program. And you'll get it.
And it doesn't matter if it takes you 4, 5, 6, 7 years. If you're moving forward, you're gonna eventually get there.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
Discipline equals freedom.
Discipline equals Jocko Willink. Discipline equals freedom.
I quote the great Coach Saban. I love quoting Coach Saban because there's so many things he says that doesn't just apply to football; it applies to life. Right? What is discipline? Discipline is doing the thing that you're supposed to do when you don't want to do it, and then not doing the thing that you're not supposed to do, right? And then doing the thing you're supposed to do. So that's why diets fail, right? You start off and I'm not going to eat a bunch of cake and ice cream, and then you start and say, okay, I'm gonna have
a little bit.
I have this.
One more. I'm gonna eat this bad meal today, then work out tomorrow. Then it's 4 months later.
And then you end up in the hospital with an A1C of 10.6 that you thought was 6.5, with people talking about cutting off your toe. Roll Tide.
To add to that, last thing I guess I'd say to that, there was Admiral McCraven.
Yeah.
All these Navy people. He gave a speech at the University of Texas. And if you can correct me on it, but he pretty much said it's your mindset. Wake up and make your bed. There was years I didn't make my bed. I'd just throw my pillows or whatever like that. But I guess waking up and doing something you don't want to do at the beginning of the day can shift your mind towards the rest of the day. If I find that video, I'll send it to you. It's really
great when he said,
I've seen it.
If you want to change the world, start by making your bed.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a mindset.
Right on.
You got a goal. You accomplish that goal. Now you can go do great things. Well, Frank, thank you for coming on the show. We appreciate you. Thank you for your service to this country for what you do to bring workers home safe from high hazard jobs. And listen, thank you to our listeners. Both episodes we've had back to back here, both listeners of the Risk Matrix. You can be a listener too. Hey, your mom wants you to listen to the Risk Matrix. An episode comes out every Tuesday around noon. It'll be posted on LinkedIn, the Veriforce YouTube channel, and over on Spotify. So all you have to do is just go over there, hit like, hit subscribe, same thing over on Spotify, and you don't have to remember the episode is about to drop. Guess what? It will remind you on this scroll device, right, that Frank was showing us, that can be very distracting and take up a lot of your time. So,
and if you like this episode or you've listened to some of our other episodes, we have almost 2 years of backlogged episodes that you can go and watch anytime you want on various subjects with people from insurance to financial to safety professionals, early and late career. We've had after the catch episodes where we've had panels of people talking about different problems in the safety profession and things that they've faced. So go on over there and look at the back episodes. And again, as James said, hit that subscribe button and it'll tell you every week when we drop. And thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening, and thanks to all of our listeners for what you do to bring workers home safe from high hazard jobs. Till next time, y'all keep bringing those workers home safe. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
Out.